The functions in this lesson fall under the group of workbook management. And I'll be honest, I don't use part of them that much, like the group cells and ungroup cells. However, I do inherit a lot of workbooks that have cells grouped together, and it helps knowing these functions. A lot of people don't even know what the group things are. To many people, it just makes the columns on the left just look kind of wacky, and we'll dig into that a little more in the demo. But just for now, here's the functions that we're going to jump into. So we're going to talk about grouping cells, ungrouping cells, and then how to hide and unhide columns. Those come in handy. At least for me, I hide columns all the time because you need to see what you need to see. A lot of times you hide everything else to avoid confusion for your users of your Excel sheets. So let's jump in and learn more. So this lesson is going to contain information about grouping cells and then hiding rows and columns. These are mostly shortcuts that you'll use when working with other people. On one side, the group cells, at least, I don't use a lot, but I see many people do, and I got to know how to use it to move their worksheets around and not get confused by grouping, because it can be confusing if you don't know how that grouping works. Another thing is hiding rows and columns. I use that a lot of times when I want to put my emphasis on a certain area. I'll hide everything else because I don't want to delete it from the sheet. I want it to still be there, but I want them to see very important row or column. So let's check that out and see how this works in practice. So here we are, and the first thing I want to show you is how to group the cells. So you can group by tables, you can group by a type of information. So let's start by highlighting the columns that we want to group. We're going to create a group for this table. Okay, so we're going to press Shift, then Alt, and then Right. And what happened is this little bar right here, that's a collapsible bar that is used to open and close this group of information. So you can collapse it up and down as needed. So let's get back to the shortcuts for this one. So if you go Shift and then spacebar, and then hold Shift still, highlight up, and then let's press Shift, Alt right key again, and then let's see what happened here. So now you have the one group, you have the two group, and you can toggle between all that stuff. You can open and close them, but you have two different groups. You see there's two different bars in this left margin because we created two groups. If we want to get rid of those groups, which I do, you highlight the same cell range, Shift, Alt, left, just got rid of it. Let's get back to using the shortcuts. Shift space. Oh, that's a little high, I think. No, that's where it starts. Okay, let's highlight down, there is good. Shift, Alt, left. So we got rid of the groups. That's how you do grouping and ungrouping of cells. Now we're going to show you how to hide and unhide rows and columns. So let's start by hiding some columns. Remember, Control space, and then hold that Shift key, and let's hide the same table. It's also going to hide the same table to the right, so make sure you want to hide an entire row or column before you do this. Control 9, and then Control Shift 9 will undo that. You actually don't have to highlight the entire column like I did before. You can just press Control 9 right here and it'll hide it for you. Okay, so we just showed you how to do the rows. Let's do the columns now. So let's press that Control space to get a whole column, and then we're going to press Control. We want to hide this table here. Let's do the Control space, and then we actually take our hand off Control, press Shift, Control 0. We hit it. If we want to unhide it, it's Control Shift 0. So Control Shift 9, Control Shift 0. It probably didn't work for you. I'm just going to guess that, but maybe it did, and that's great if it did. But if it did not work for you, when you tried to unhide the cells pressing Control Shift 0, it's because you have a setting on your computer for regional languages or a regional keyboard. And I'm going to show you how to fix that. It's by default by Microsoft. So if you didn't turn that off, it's probably still on there. And there's your Control Shift 0, and some of your other Control Shift commands probably aren't working. So let's do that. So you want to go to the control panel, just search it in your start bar for control panel, and change keyboard. Don't worry, it won't do anything too dangerous. You can always change it back. Just come back to this video, figure out what we did. So you just go here to this change keyboard, change other keyboard settings. It's going to pull this up, and then we're going to click on our keyboard, and then input language hotkeys. Okay, so this between input languages, let's go to this change key sequence, and I'm gonna guess that yours is probably Control Shift. So what I did was put it to not assigned. When I did that, this Control Shift 0 function worked, and I'm hoping the same thing happens for you. But you got to say OK, and then you have to apply, and then hit the OK button again. And then after you do that, you might have to close Excel and then reopen it, but you should be able to unhide columns. It might seem like a lot of work for just unhiding the columns, but you know, it might affect other shortcuts that you try to use in the future. So you know, you might decide you want to keep that kind of setting. I don't know what it originally does, but you know, I'll take my chances. So I hope you learned something new in this lesson. I'll see you on the next one.